Come to Papa.
While Welcome to Derry has changed a lot of Pennywise's villainous lore, the evil entity's new backstory found a particularly ingenious way to reverse the killer clown's modus operandi. Welcome to Derry changed Pennywise's powers numerous times, but the opening scene of Season 1, Episode 7, The Black Spot, took things further than ever. The episode's extended cold open was set in 1908, and the flashback focused on Bob Gray, a carnival worker who performed on stage as Pennywise the Dancing Clown. A favorite of local children, Gray was an ordinary human children's performer, with an adoring daughter and a late wife who once performed as part of his act. Although he looked just like it, Derry's killer clown Pennywise on stage, 1908's Gray was a genuinely harmless and seemingly sweet man. He looked forward to letting his daughter take her mother's role in his double act, and was happy to hear just how much the young crowd of viewers enjoyed his show. It takes the form of a lost child to possess Bob Gray/Pennywise. That was until Gray was targeted by it. Before the entity known as it ever took the form of Pennywise the Dancing Clown, the monster killed Gray himself. It seemingly did this to absorb his essence, meaning the evil entity could then imitate him in years to come. The entity appeared to Gray as a young, lost boy. Standing at the edge of the woods while Gray smoked outside the carnival, the boy complimented his clowning and then implored the entertainer to help him find his missing mother. Gray left with the boy and was never seen again, though his blood-soaked handkerchief was discovered and given to his grieving daughter. It was tragic to discover that Welcome to Derry's Ingrid Kirsch wasn't lying when she claimed her father was Pennywise the Dancing Clown, and that the unhinged woman clearly believed Derry's resident shape-shifting monster was her missing father. However, what made this twist even more effective is the fact that the storyline reversed Pennywise's worst kills. Pennywise's worst killings saw him target lost children. Pennywise takes many forms to kill many characters throughout the novel It, the movies, It and It Chapter 2, and It, Welcome to Derry. However, all of his most upsetting kills have the same thing in common. Their victims are all children, as Pennywise is a rare horror franchise villain who doesn't think twice about violently killing kids. Whether it is Georgie Innit, whose death sets the entire novel and movie series in motion, or Victoria, the little girl under the bleachers in it. Chapter 2, Pennywise's nastiest murders all happen to defenseless kids. As such, it is surreal and surprising to see a seemingly innocent child lure the clown himself to his death in the Black Spot. While Welcome to Derry's Black Spot Massacre was the episode's most upsetting sequence, it was still chilling to see a child lead Gray to his death so soon after viewers were introduced to Pennywise's human inspiration for the first time. Just as viewers got their heads around the idea that Pennywise was once an ordinary man, he was doomed. There was a poetic irony in seeing the clown that has led so many kids to their deaths being led astray by a child, but of course, this isn't quite accurate. Bob Gray was just an ordinary carnival performer, not the ageless monster of Derry, and the child that fooled him wasn't really a kid, but rather another disguise for this Lovecraftian shape-shifting villain. Welcome to Derry makes Pennywise's story so much worse. Finding out that Bob Gray was great with kids and loved working with them makes Pennywise's using the late man's form to kill them even worse. It was already pretty twisted that Pennywise adopted a dead person's personality to wear their face and kill people. But doing so specifically so he could target kids is terrifying. To make matters worse, Gray's genuine love of kids appears to be the reason that his daughter spent so long fooling herself into thinking it was her father. While in it, Welcome to Derry, Ingrid Kirsch becomes a conduit for Pennywise herself by the time It, Chapter 2 takes place. In it, Welcome to Derry, Madeline Stowe's younger version of the character is his hapless lackey. She brings Pennywise children to eat in the boiler room beneath Juniper Hill Asylum, but seems to be blissfully unaware that he is killing them down there. Years later, she tracks Ronnie, Lily, Will, and Rich when they visit the cemetery, hoping to be reunited with the monster that she thinks is her father. When this was first revealed, it seemed like Lily must have been entirely unhinged. However, the revelation of her father's kindness, as well as her young age when he went missing, explains how It, Welcome to Derry's misguided character, could possibly think that the It villain was really her father, rather than a child-eating monster. While It, Welcome to Derry has featured plenty of memorably brutal deaths so far in Season 1, the saddest moment in the prequel series makes its plot even sadder. Welcome to Derry's many Stephen King references are carefully threaded throughout the show's story, allowing the series to expand on the author's fictional universe. However, it would be easy for viewers to miss out on the show's subtler nods to earlier King works when the story of the series is so gripping and brutal. Season 1, Episode 7, The Black Spot, expanded Pennywise the Dancing Clown's backstory, but it was the racist massacre at the titular nightclub that commanded the episode's focus. During the horrific slaughter, countless patrons were killed by a violent white supremacist militia who had attempted to lynch Ronnie's father, Hank Grogan. When the patrons of the Black Spot refused to give up Hank, the racist townspeople of Derry locked the doors, set the bar alight, and began shooting at the defenseless people inside. Both It, Welcome to Derry's Rich, and It's Richie missed out on their love stories. While it may sound surprising, the saddest moment in the ensuing massacre subtly referenced an earlier King story. Specifically, Rich's unexpected Welcome to Derry death referenced It's Richie Tozier subplot, as their character arcs mirrored each other in numerous ways. Throughout it, Welcome to Derry Season 1, Rich was the group's comedic relief. A talkative kid who wore his heart on his sleeve, Rich was well-meaning but also clumsy and occasionally over-enthusiastic. He has these traits in common with Richie Tozier of It and It. Chapter 2, the next generation's resident wise guy who grows up to become a stand-up comedian. From his first introduction, Rich was always in love with it. Welcome to Derry, Marge. He immediately confessed his crush to Wilt when they first met, and later gained the courage to hold her hand when the group entered the sewers with Maddie in Episode 5, 29 Neibolt Street. Although It, Welcome to Derry, almost killed off Marge in Episode 4, the great swirling apparatus of our planet's function, she survived the outing with only a severely injured eye to show for it. Rich and she grew closer when he helped nurse her injury an episode later, prompting Marge to ally herself with Rich instead of her old friends. Rich had just impressed Marge with his expert drumming skills when the massacre at the Black Spot began, and the pair were on the verge of admitting their feelings for each other before the attack. Rich ended up saving Marge from the blaze but died in the process, telling her he loved her as he passed away. Rich's It, Welcome to Derry death makes Richie Tozier's It story even sadder. Although It, Welcome to Derry's devastating tragedy was foreshadowed earlier in the season, this didn't make the moment any less brutally tragic when it arrived. Rich and Marge never got a chance to be together since Rich was killed before the duo could admit their feelings for each other. The same fate befell Richie Tozier decades later in It Chapter 2, when his estranged childhood friend Eddie is killed by Pennywise near the end of the sequel. Although it is heavily implied in the source novel, It Chapter 2's movie adaptation made it clear that Eddie and Richie harbored a mutual attraction that neither of them ever acknowledged. Eddie was in a loveless marriage when he died, while Richie was conspicuously single, but Richie only admitted he was in love with Eddie after Eddie died. Similarly, Rich only told Marge he loved her when he sacrificed his life for hers, making the two comic relief characters into tragic mirror images of each other. Richie's It ending is even more poignant after it, Welcome to Derry. Both It, Welcome to Derry, and It Chapter 2 have a comic relief character named Richard, who tries to keep things light, but still ends up in a heartbreaking story of lost love by the end of his story. That said, Rich's sacrifice was not pointless, since Marge was one of the only characters to survive the massacre. Similarly, decades after It, Welcome to Derry's Black Spot Massacre, the Losers Club's final showdown with Pennywise was a worthy way for Eddie to give up his life. Although it is tragic that he died, Eddie did at least help the group to finally kill Pennywise for good. This means that, even though Eddie and Richie never got to see it, Derry was freed from the monster's clutches by the end of Eddie and Richie's story. Thus, while Rich and Richie might both have lost their love interest too soon, they can take solace in helping to defeat the evil entity. After the Black Spot Massacre, Pennywise told Ingrid Kirsch, "Welcome to Derry," and that he would return to sleep while, after his final face-off with the Losers Club, he was reduced to nothing. The It, Welcome to Derry hero's sacrifice saved his love interest, while the death of Eddie's love interest from it saved the entire town. It, Welcome to Derry has finally explained why the creature took the shape of Pennywise the Dancing Clown and made it its preferred form, and it's a disturbing story. After the success of Andy Muschietti's It movies, this universe is expanding with the prequel series It, Welcome to Derry, set in 1962. Welcome to Derry follows a new group of kids who are being haunted by the evil, shape-shifting creature best known as It. Along with the kids, story is one following some of the adults in Derry, as the military has disturbing plans for it. Welcome to Derry has gone deeper into the backstory of the creature and its presence in Derry, and the show finally explained why it takes the form of Pennywise, who was a real person. Who Bob Gray was before becoming Pennywise's human formant. Chapter 2 gave a brief look at the person it took its Pennywise form from. When adult Bev visits her childhood home, she's welcomed by an old Mrs. Kirsch, who is actually it, preparing to attack. When trying to escape, Bev comes across it in the form of Bob Gray. It's a brief moment where Bob Gray is putting the white makeup on and torments Bev, but it was enough to spark curiosity about him. Welcome to Derry has already had a couple of shocking twists, such as the nurse Lily trusted being Ingrid Kirsch, and she being none other than the daughter of the real Bob Gray. Bob Gray was a circus clown who performed as Pennywise the dancing clown, and Ingrid accompanied him, even showing him her clown makeup so they could, one day, perform together. One night, it, in the form of a child, lured Bob Gray into the woods, and Ingrid never saw her father again. It targeted Bob Gray because of Pennywise's popularity with children. It targeting Bob Gray and choosing his Pennywise form as its go-to shape was carefully planned. It noticed how popular Bob Gray's Pennywise was with kids, and as everyone knows, it prefers to feed on children and their fears, as their fears are less complex than those of adults, and thus it can terrorize them more easily. Through the form of Pennywise, it can attract children much more easily, as seen with Georgie Innit and other kids in the sequel, thus getting a consistent supply of children to feed on. Another advantage of taking Pennywise's form is that many adults are scared of clowns too, so it can easily feed on them as well. Why it took the form of a child to lure Bob Gray. If there's something that has to be recognized about it, it is its creativity, and Welcome to Derry has made sure to seize that and has brought to life some truly unexpected and wild forms of the creature. However, it also knows when to keep it simple to be effective, and that's exactly how it caught Bob Gray. Bob Gray was on a break, smoking a cigarette, when a kid approached him for help to find his parents. This kid had already been shown watching Pennywise's show from a distance, and the audience knew it was it, as the kid's eyes were yellow and bright. Although hesitant at first, Bob Gray ended up following the kid into the woods. Adults would usually help a kid in need, which is most likely why it chose to pose as a young boy at the carnival and ask Bob Gray for help. Welcome to Derry had already shown the kid trying to blend in at the circus and was most likely looking for its next victim while there. Bob Gray's Pennywise the Dancing Clown was originally a circus favorite and a loving father, and it turned him into a living nightmare and a legend in the most horrifying way possible.
I'm done being scared! I can't hear you!
Welcome to Derry's Episode 7 features one of the most tragic developments of the show before highlighting the truth about General Shaw's plan. In the final moments of it, Welcome to Derry's Episode 6, many people from Derry showed up at the Black Spot after learning that Ronnie's father was hiding there after escaping from Shawshank prison. Episode 7 reveals that they wish to cause no trouble and only hope to capture the escaped convict and leave. However, when Hallorann resists, they decide to burn down the Black Spot. Many characters end up dead in the fire, and unfortunately, Rich, too, dies when he puts his life on the line to save Marge. Before the episode's final credits start rolling, Shaw and his men also find one of the shards that keeps Pennywise trapped in the woods before the general reveals the truth about his plan to Leroy Hanlon. What Pennywise does to Will and Mrs. Kirsch. In it, Welcome to Derry. Episode 7. Pennywise exposes both Mrs. Kirsch and Will to its true deadlight form. According to the lore in the original Stephen King book, even a glimpse of the deadlights is enough to make one's mind collapse. As seen in the Mrs. Kirsch scene, it freezes the victim's body and makes them completely lose themselves to Pennywise's control. In Episode 7's ending moments, Will, too, is exposed to the deadlights by Pennywise, suggesting that he, too, will meet the same fate as Mrs. Kirsch. For now, though, both characters are still seemingly alive. Given how Will Hanlon's future in the franchise is known, he will somehow end up saving himself from fully slipping into Pennywise's grasp, either by breaking the deadlights, trance himself, or by being pulled out by someone else, likely his mother. General Shaw's real plan explained why he wants to free Pennywise. After learning about the location of one of the shards that keeps Pennywise contained in the forests, General Shaw's men take it to their military base and try to destroy it. This makes Hanlon wonder what they are actually trying to do. When he confronts Shaw, The general reveals that the nuclear threat from other nations was never his biggest concern. His biggest concern has always been the internal state of his own nation, where crime has been significantly rising. By setting Pennywise loose and allowing it to freely feed during his cycles, Shaw hopes to instill fear in the minds of the people of the country. He hopes that the threat of a cosmic force like Pennywise would discipline people and force them to become more compliant. Put simply, Shaw wants to use Pennywise as a weapon to enforce authoritarian rule in America. Whose spirit leads Dick Hallorann to the first shard from the star? Dick Hallorann seems to see the spirit of one of Rose's ancestors, who is likely Nakani or her mother. As the show's past timeline revealed, Nakani's mother, the Sesqui, was murdered by Pennywise before Nakani found the fallen star that got Pennywise to Earth. She and her people used shards from the star to ensure Pennywise remains trapped in the woods. However, since Nakani and her mother's primary motive was to ensure Pennywise did not harm humans, it is hard not to wonder why the woman helps Hallorann find the shard. It seems possible that the woman is another projection created by Pennywise in his Hallorann's head. Or Nakani's mother must be out for revenge against invaders, like General Shaw, who was also responsible for setting Pennywise free when she was alive. How Rich's death affects the other children in it. Welcome to Derry. All the young characters grieve Rich's death, and Marge, for obvious reasons, is the most affected by it. Even though Rich's demise is heartbreaking, Welcome to Derry was seemingly foreshadowing it for quite some time. His passing will likely serve as a catalyst for the other young characters to fight harder against Pennywise. It will give them the courage to stand tall against the cosmic threat and show no fear when they confront it. At the same time, though, Rich's death is also a reminder of how Welcome to Derry is no Stranger Things replacement. It highlights how the show is a brutal Stephen King adaptation where no character is safe against the evil Pennywise. Is Derry actually safe when Pennywise is asleep? General Shaw and his military men assume that since Pennywise has completed another feeding cycle and has gone back to sleep, Derry is safe from it until its next cycle begins. Owing to this, they do not think twice before burning down one of the shards that keep it contained. However, as the episode later reveals, Pennywise awakens after sensing the opening in the woods and attacks Will. This development suggests that after seeing the opportunity to escape its containment, Pennywise has seemingly reawakened and will spread even more chaos in Derry. It will now come down to Hanlon, Hallorann, and the younger characters in it. Welcome to Derry's finale to find a way to trap it again before it is too late. Pennywise's origin story and in it, Welcome to Derry, shows the complex mythology behind the terrifying monster. Pennywise the Clown is a supernatural foe who has all kinds of nightmarish powers at his disposal to terrify his victims. The residents of Derry, Maine, are visited by Pennywise every 27 years, and Welcome to Derry Season 1, follows one of these brutal killing sprees in the early 60s. The two-part movie further cemented Pennywise as an iconic horror movie villain, while Welcome to Derry exposed more of his dark beginnings. Pennywise works as a mystery to his victims, making it all the more terrifying when they are confronted with his incredible power and seemingly unrelenting nature. However, the iconic clown persona that appears to George in the sewer in the first movie is just scratching the surface of the truth behind Pennywise. From where this evil being came from to its terrifying true form, there are a lot of details to be explored in Pennywise's origin story. This is evidenced in Welcome to Derry's Ingrid Kirsch storyline, among its other subplots. Where Pennywise comes from. Pennywise arrived on Earth centuries ago. Despite his iconic and unsettling appearance, Pennywise is not a clown, but rather an ancient, evil being that is perhaps as old as the universe itself. It comes from the void that contains the entirety of existence. This space beyond space in Pennywise's origin story is called the Macroverse, also referred to as the To-Darkness in Stephen King's Dark Tower novels. IT's home dimension is a realm that sits alongside ours in the Macroverse, and Pennywise's specific corner of cosmic real estate is called the Deadlights. At some point, Pennywise left the Deadlights and traveled across the Macroverse, entering our universe. Pennywise arrived on Earth in a cataclysmic event millions of years ago. He landed in the section of what would become North America, specifically where the town of Derry, Maine, eventually came to be built. Pennywise slumbered beneath the earth for millions of years, awaiting the arrival of humankind. When the town of Derry was built in 1715, IT awoke and began a cycle of feeding on the fears of the people of Derry, and then resuming hibernation for cycles of 27 to 30 years. Why Pennywise eats kids? How has Pennywise gone unnoticed? The clown in IT doesn't technically eat kids. It consumes their fear, but the process is fatal. Pennywise/IT preys on the children of Derry because their fears are easier to manifest into a physical form and harvest. King decided for IT to predominantly take the shape of Pennywise the dancing clown because he believes clowns scare children more than anything else in the world. It influences the adults of Derry to passively ignore it and not interfere with his attacks on Derry's children. However, he's not above consuming adults when the mood strikes. Because IT manipulates the minds of the people of Derry, they don't dwell on the tragedies that occur. Therefore, despite the number of children who go missing, adults just passively post new missing photos over the old ones and continue on as if nothing is wrong. Pennywise isn't just responsible for spates of missing children every 27 to 30 years, though. As Ben, Jeremy Ray Taylor, discovered when he researched Derry's history in the library, IT has been a part of the terror and death in Derry for centuries. Pennywise was responsible for the explosion at the Kitchener Iron Works that killed 108 people, including 88 children. He also contributed to the Black Spot Massacre when Welcome to Derry's Hank Grogan was accused of killing Pennywise, who ate him. IT can also be awakened by an act of violence on top of Pennywise's 27 to 30-year cycle. Stephen King's 1986 novel IT begins with a boy named Dorsey Corcoran being beaten to death by his stepfather, Richard Macklin, in 1957. This awakens Pennywise. Pennywise's primary goal is terrifying and subsequently consuming children, but he also simply relishes and causes violence, mayhem, and general carnage. What is Pennywise's true form? Pennywise takes multiple forms over the course of the movie. Pennywise is a shapeshifter that takes the form of whatever its victim fears the most. Pennywise the clown, offering children balloons as it did to little Georgie, Jackson Robert Scott, at the start of the first IT movie, is just the preferred physical form, though. It takes many other shapes, such as a homeless leper chasing Eddie, Jack Dylan Grazer, and the woman in the painting that terrifies Stan, Wyatt Olaf. In the novel, IT takes on even more shapes, like a giant spider and several famous monsters the producers of IT don't have the cinematic rights to. These included Dracula, the Wolfman, the creature from the Black Lagoon, Frankenstein's monster, the shark from Jaws, and Rodan. In the original Stephen King novel, IT, Billy, Jaden Lieberher, glimpsed Pennywise's true form in the deadlights for a moment, and he described it as an endless, crawling, hairy creature made of orange light. Though IT likes to manifest itself as a male clown named Pennywise in the novel, IT also takes the form of an enormous female spider. In IT Chapter 2, Richie, played by Bill Hader, also glimpses Pennywise's true form at the film's climax. In IT Chapter 2, Pennywise is shown as a trio of glowing lights swimming among infinite walls of what appears to be red-hot flesh. The experience is enough to cause Richie's eyes to roll back in his skull, and viewing the deadlights nearly kills him. This was a great direction for the movie adaptation to take, since IT/Pennywise is supposed to be a cosmic entity and godlike presence in King's wider fictional canon. Its natural enemy is another supreme being from the Macroverse called the Turtle. The Turtle also appears in the Dark Tower series as Maturin, one of the Guardians of the Beam, but IT describes himself as, quote, the superior being. Whether Pennywise is more powerful than the Turtle isn't known. However, the fact it's debatable in the context of Maturin being one of the entities holding King's cross-title fictional reality together is a testament to Pennywise being truly powerful. What powers Pennywise has? Does Pennywise have weaknesses? As an ancient supernatural evil, IT has a plethora of superpowers. In addition to shapeshifting, Pennywise can also cast illusions. It was IT that manifested the fire responsible for killing Mike's, chosen Jacob's parents. It can project itself into photographs, like the slideshow of Billy's family the losers watched in Billy's garage, and can appear and disappear at will. This last power is demonstrated when he shows up in the woods to watch when Mike is being attacked by Henry Bowers and his gang of thugs. Pennywise's most lethal power is the ability to manipulate how people perceive reality, which is how IT got away with centuries of violence. This power is why Alvin Marsh, Stephen Bogart, the abusive father of Beverly, Sophia Lillis, couldn't see that their entire bathroom was covered in blood after IT attacked Beverly. When the losers found Pennywise's lair in the sewers, they saw the corpses of every IT child victim floating above, one example of the telekinesis he possesses. Despite all of IT's powers, however, he proved vulnerable to physical attack once the losers were able to overcome their fear of Pennywise. IT is able to regenerate himself, as he did when Beverly speared Pennywise through his head, but only up to a point. This is diminished if his attacker isn't afraid. After the amount of physical damage he took from the emboldened losers, Pennywise had to retreat to the bowels beneath Derry to go back to slumber and regenerate for 27 years. Wyatt took over Bob Gray's Pennywise form. Its clown form was stolen from a human victim. In it, Welcome to Derry's Ingrid Kirsch story, the show revealed that Pennywise, the dancing clown himself, real name Bob Gray, was another victim of it before he became the monster's preferred form. A widowed circus performer, he worked as a clown at a carnival near Derry in 1908. Gray hoped to get his daughter Ingrid into the family business, and even allowed her to perform with her mother's stage name, Periwinkle. However, because Bob Gray was beloved by children and had gained their trust as an entertainer, it targeted him, killed him, and assumed his identity as its default form. It transformed into a lost child and asked Bob for help, finding its mother in the woods outside the carnival. Since Bob was a kind man who would help out a child in need, the monster successfully ensnared and devoured him in Episode 7, The Black Spot. Everything It, Welcome to Derry, Season 1 has revealed about Pennywise's backstory. The IT prequel revealed more of the monster's backstory. The origins of Pennywise in IT and IT Chapter 2 were changed significantly from Stephen King's original 1986 novel. The origins of Pennywise in Stephen King's IT novel were both quite ambiguous and, in many ways, incredibly complex, and it, Welcome to Derry, honored King's story by portraying the complex, changing form of Pennywise. Stephen King's version of Pennywise was a cosmic horror being that required a lot of explanation when it came to its history and backstory. Similarly, it, Welcome to Derry's monster, is a being with a lengthy, varied history. When it appeared to Derry's original native inhabitants, it operated like a Wendigo. When the monster returned in the 20th century, it took on the appearance of Pennywise, the dancing clown, to attract young victims after killing Bob Gray. The monster also stoked racial divisions in Derry, as it feeds off pain, anger, sadness, and fear. In the It movies, director Andy Muschietti's version of the killer clown exists in a standalone story, with no connections to a wider horror cosmology like its on-page counterpart. However, in It, Welcome to Derry, the franchise figurehead successfully reintroduced Pennywise's backstory. The TV prequel explains that Pennywise has lived in the woods since before any humans came to Derry, but that he only took on the form of the dancing clown after killing Bob Gray in 1908. Before that, and since, he has taken on the form of each victim's unique fears. What the It movies and prequel show changed about Pennywise from the book It, Welcome to Derry, brought back the more complex ideas from King's novel, the 2017 IT and 2019 IT. Chapter 2 changed a lot of details from the original Stephen King novel, especially when it comes to Pennywise. Pennywise takes many different forms in the novel. These were removed from the movie for licensing reasons, especially since some were characters like the shark from Jaws and Rodan from the Godzilla movies. The methods Pennywise uses in the book vary slightly too, and his list of victims is larger. Books featuring Pennywise also make many allusions to Stephen King's fictional universe, but understandably, references to the turtle are removed in IT and IT Chapter 2. However, It, Welcome to Derry not only reinstated many novel details, but the show even expanded on them. Through Dick Hallorann's use of The Shining, the prequel reveals that Pennywise has been trapped in Derry by the natives for generations, using a cage made of various pillars that seemingly contain the entity. These details explain why Pennywise never left Derry, and why its sphere of influence is limited to the town. Furthermore, It, Welcome to Derry's Bob Gray flashbacks explain exactly why the monster looks like a clown, even though its titular villain is really an ageless, evil entity.